Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever encountered someone who speaks about, a reality beyond our everyday senses? Something deeply spiritual, but also really practical.
Hmm. Yeah, you hear those kinds of descriptions.
What exactly do they mean? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the, well, profound and often misunderstood world of mysticism.
Right.
We're drawing our core insights from Evelyn Underhill's major work, Mysticism.
A classic text on the subject. Really foundational.
And our mission really is to strip away the sensational stuff, the superficial ideas.
Get past the stereotypes.
Exactly. And uncover what mysticism really is and understand its intensely transformative nature for those who actually embark on this journey.
And what's truly fascinating, I think, is how our understanding of mysticism, or the general perception of it, has changed so dramatically over time.
Oh, so.
Well, for a long while, it was often just dismissed, wasn't it? Seen as a kind of peculiar byway of religion, something a bit weird on the fringes.
Right, not mainstream?
But our sources, like especially Underhill, highlight this major shift. Theologians, philosophers, even psychologists now often recognize it as an intensive form of the essential religious experience of man.
Wow, okay. So from the fringe to potentially the core.
Pretty much. It's gone from the periphery to being seen, by many at least, as central to deep human spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So we'll explore why that perception shifted and why understanding this journey is, well, pretty crucial for anyone interested in the deeper currents of human consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we first hear that word mysticism, it's so easy for our minds to jump to, I don't know, crystal balls, maybe fortune tellers.
Trances, strange states.
Exactly. But our deep dive today makes it incredibly clear that's not what we're talking about here. Not at all.
Yeah. No.
So if it's not a cult philosophy or psychic phenomena designed to manipulate things, then what is true mysticism?
Precisely. And Underhill draws a really vital distinction here, a crucial one,
Okay.
between genuine mysticism and any form of magic, or what she terms occult philosophy.
Right. How does she define that difference?
Well, think of it like this. Magic, or occult practice, it generally aims to enlarge the sphere on which the human will can work.
So it's about power, control.
Yes, usually.
Yeah.
Gaining control, often for, material ends, or using techniques that might even look a bit like early psychology.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, they're about bending reality to your will. The true mystic, though, is driven by something completely different.
Which is?
It's about establishing immediate communication between the spirit of man and that only reality.
Okay, only reality. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means connecting directly, immediately, with the ultimate fundamental nature of existence itself. Whether philosophers call that the absolute or theologians call it God, it's about that direct link.
A direct link. And it's not passive, you're saying?
Definitely not passive. It's described as an arduous psychological and spiritual process.
Mm-hmm.
Hard work. It demands total dedication to the will. And crucially, it's fueled by generous love, not just, intellectual curiosity.
So it's not about getting powers, like in magic, but about achieving this really profound, intimate connection.
Exactly. Connection, not control.
What really strikes me from our sources, then, is this idea that mysticism is not an opinion. It is not a philosophy.
Right. That's a key quote.
Instead, it's presented as a form of life.
How does that specific phrasing, form of life, shift how we should understand it? What are the implications?
Oh, it changes everything, fundamentally. It means we're looking at something deeply personal, deeply experiential. It's a journey that's lived, not just thought about or believed in.
Right.
It's described as an organic process, which involves the perfect consummation of the love of God. Think of it as this relentless quest, really, for conscious union with a living absolute.
Conscious union.
Yes. So the mystics aren't just thinkers. They're portrayed almost as pioneers of the spiritual world. Explorers.
Like mapping new territory. Kind of, yeah. Venturing into these inner territories that maybe many of us don't feel competent to adventure ourselves, as Underhill puts it. They're charting a path for others, in a way.
Okay, if mysticism is this form of life, this path, then it absolutely implies a process, right? A journey with stages.
Definitely.
And our sources detail this as the mystic way. It seems to unfold in distinct stages. So where does this, extraordinary journey begin?
It begins with what's called the awakening of the self.
The awakening, okay.
And this is often a really decisive event. It's frequently compared to an intense form of the phenomenon of conversion, like a religious conversion, but perhaps even more profound for the individual.
So a big shift.
A huge shift, a fundamental disturbance of the equilibrium of the self. Your whole consciousness seems to shift, sometimes dramatically, to higher levels of awareness.
Can it be gradual or is it always sudden?
It can be gradual, apparently, but often it's accompanied by what our source calls travail, real intense struggle or labor. Because as she says, travail is the normal accompaniment of birth. Something new is being born in you.
That makes sense. Any examples of this?
Sure. Think of George Fox, the founder of the Quakers. He talked about experiencing two thirsts. One for, fleeting earthly things, the creatures, and another deeper thirst for the Creator. And this led him towards an increasing lucidity, a clarity he hadn't known.
Two thirsts.
Or maybe even more famously, St. Francis of Assisi. After a long period of internal struggle, he reportedly heard the image of Christ crucified say, "Francis, go repair my house."
Wow.
And this wasn't just hearing a voice. It apparently brought about an abrupt and involuntary alteration in the subject's consciousness. It made him literally another man, a total reorientation.
That sounds incredibly dramatic, almost like a psychic earthquake or something.
Yeah, it can be that profound for the person experiencing it.
But, okay, after this initial, maybe quite intense awakening, the path seems to get even harder, is that right? With the purification of the self, or purgation.
That's right, purgation.
This feels like where a lot of the common misconceptions about mysticism, especially around suffering and asceticism, tend to creep in.
Yes, indeed. And purgation isn't just difficult. Underhill calls it the slow and painful completion of conversion.
The completion of it.
Yes. The awakening starts it, but the purgation solidifies it, makes it real in the person's being. It's about self-simplification.
Self-simplification, what does that involve?
A radical casting off, not just of material wealth, but immaterial as well as material wealth. Everything non-essential has to go.
Everything.
The mystics call this concept inward poverty. And again, it's not primarily about being financially poor. It's about a profound inner detachment.
Detachment from what?
From ego, from expectations, from desires, from intellectual pride. Basically, everything that isn't essential to that connection with the real. It includes purity of intention, obedience to this perceived higher will, a complete letting go.
That sounds incredibly demanding.
It is. It's described as the drastic turning of the self from the unreal to the real life. And this stage includes the famous dark night of the soul.
Ah, yes, the dark night. Probably the most well-known part of this, maybe the most feared.
Perhaps. And it is famously difficult. It's a period of intense divine absence, apparently. A feeling of profound spiritual emptiness or dryness, where the usual comforts, even spiritual ones, seem to just disappear.
God feels absent.
Completely absent is how it's often described.
Yeah.
It's where the human instincts for personal happiness must be killed.
Killed. That sounds harsh.
It does sound harsh. But it means the ego's constant craving for self-gratification, for control, for its own kind of happiness, has to be dismantled. It's described as a spiritual crucifixion.
Wow, but why? What's the purpose of such intense suffering?
Critically, Underhill emphasizes, its true object is not death but life. It's about the production of health and strength. It's seen as the way divine humanity is forged within the person.
How does suffering lead to strength?
By forcing the self, essentially, to confront its own weaknesses and dependencies and to pick up those qualities which it had left behind. Perhaps humility, resilience, deeper trust, things you only find when stripped bare. It's a reintegration, in a way.
So the darkness, the difficulty, they aren't ends in themselves. They're like a crucible, necessary for growth, for this recreation.
Exactly. A crucible is a great analogy. Necessary, though incredibly painful.
I'm thinking of the example you mentioned earlier, Suso. You said he was a born romantic, but he endured immense suffering, even false accusations.
That's right. He faced terrible trials, including being falsely accused of fathering a child, which must have been devastating.
How did he respond?
Apparently, with a noble expression of trust in the ultimate good, despite the appearances. And this profound acceptance, this trust through the darkness, is said to have led him to a new state of pure love.
Incredible. It's such a counterintuitive path, isn't it? Turning towards the difficulty.
Deeply counterintuitive to our usual way of seeking comfort and avoiding pain.
Okay. So after this intense predation, this dark night, the journey moves into the illumination of the self. Things get brighter.
Yes, illumination. This is where the mystic starts to experience a form of mental life, a kind of perception, radically different from that of normal men.
Radically different how?
It's described as a profound, deep, intuitional knowledge of the secret plan, almost like suddenly seeing the underlying pattern, the deeper meaning behind everything.
Seeing the blueprint of reality, you said earlier.
Something like that, yes. And this often manifests, very practically, as an intense sense of the divine presence, constantly.
Like feeling God is right there.
Exactly.
Mm.
St. Teresa described it as feeling Christ close by me, a witness of all I did. Not just an idea, but a felt presence.
Hmm. And does it change how they see the world around them?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
It can be a vision of a new heaven and a new earth, where the ordinary phenomenal world takes on this added significance in reality.
Hmm.
Everything seems luminous, meaningful.
Loomis.
Jacob Owain, for instance, spoke of seeing into the deepest foundations of things just by looking at the very herbs and grass.
Wow. Seeing the divine in the everyday.
Precisely. As the philosopher Erigena put it, every visible and invisible creature is a theophany or appearance of God. Everything reveals the divine.
That sounds beautiful.
It often brings this beautiful sympathy with nature, too, like St. Francis, famously preaching to the birds or singing joyfully with the lark. It's this sense of kinship, of the divine spark in everything.
That sounds like an incredibly vivid, expanded way of perceiving the world. When people think of mysticism, this is probably closer to what comes to mind, maybe as a kind of peak experience.
Yes, I think you're right. This stage resonates more with popular ideas.
Is this also what's often called ecstasy, or is there a distinction we need to make?
That's a great question. Because ecstasy is often linked to this stage, but it's not quite the same thing.
Well,
Ecstasy is more of a specific psychophysical state that can accompany illumination, but it isn't the defining characteristic or even always present.
so what is ecstasy then in this context?
It's described as an exalted act of perception, often involving a complete unification of consciousness, where the external world seems to fade away entirely. The person feels utterly absorbed.
Absorbed in the divine.
Yes, it can be a brief synthetic act like a sudden flash of intense insight or union, or it can be a more passive union, where the mystic feels completely overtaken.
Right.
However, and this is important, our sources, Underhill particularly, are careful to point out that not all ecstatic states are necessarily healthy or spiritually productive.
Really? How so?
Well, some, especially perhaps later in a mystic's life or when they're physically weak, might actually be results of increasing weakness of body, not of the overpowering strength of the spirit.
Ah, so it could be a sign of depletion rather than spiritual height.
Potentially, yes.
Huh.
Underhill mentions some experiences of St. Catherine of Genoa in this context, suggesting a need for discernment. So, while ecstasy can happen, the ultimate goal, the true mark of the completed mystic journey, isn't just chasing those ecstatic moments.
What is it then?
It's achieving and living in the unitive life. That's the ongoing state of profound union, not just the temporary flash.
Unit of life, right? The culmination of the mystic way, the final destination, so to speak. What does this actually look like for someone living in the world? Is it about withdrawing into contemplation?
And that's another common misconception. No, the unitive life, as described here, is emphatically not about permanent withdrawal.
Okay.
This is the stage where the mystic's self, though intact, is wholly penetrated as a sponge by the sea, by the ocean of life and love.
Wow, a sponge by the sea. That's evocative.
Isn't it? It's described as a perfect uniting and coupling together of the lover and the loved into one, often symbolized beautifully as spiritual marriage.
A spiritual marriage.
But here's the crucial insight. This deep inner union doesn't lead to detachment from the world, but often to incredibly effective engagement with it.
Really? How does that work?
The mystic in the unitive life often becomes, paradoxically perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
a pioneer of humanity, a sharply intuitive and painfully practical person.
Practical.
Yes, think artists, discoverers, religious or social reformers, even national heroes. Their deep connection gives them clarity and energy for action.
Can you give an example?
St. Catherine of Siena is a prime example. After her profound mystic marriage experience, she didn't retreat further. She abandoned her earlier solitude.
What does she do?
She went out to serve the poor and the sick during plague times and famously became involved in church politics, even advising popes.
Where did she get the strength, the wisdom for that?
Apparently, she drew immense practical strength and insight directly from her ongoing inner life, her visions and sense of union. So the unitive life embodies this powerful paradox.
Which is?
Tranquility according to his essence, activity according to his nature.
Okay, break that down.
It means perfect stillness and peace at their core, at the essence level, combined with perfect outward productivity, creativity, fecundity, activity, according to God's creative nature.
Stillness and action together.
Exactly. The mystic simultaneously lives in rest and in work, embodying the supreme summit of the inner life. They bring the eternal into time through action.
This is clearly describing a profound, holistic transformation of the entire person, isn't it? Not just developing a spiritual side.
Absolutely. It's a total remaking of the self.
So what does this deep understanding of mysticism mean for how it connects with other ways of knowing, like philosophy or psychology? Where does it fit in the bigger picture?
Well, it means recognizing its unique place.
Hmm.
It's not trying to be philosophy or psychology, though it intersects with them.
How does it differ from philosophy, for instance?
Underhill suggests that while philosophy might offer us brilliant diagrams of the heavens' intellectual maps of reality, it doesn't necessarily provide a ladder to the stars. It doesn't give you the practical means for that lived communion with reality.
Maps versus the journey itself.
Kind of. As St. Jerome famously put it, Plato located the soul of man in the head, Christ located it in the heart. Mysticism, you could say, operates from that desirous, striving heart seeking union, not just understanding.
Okay. And what about psychology? It sounds like there are psychological processes involved, awakening, transformation.
Oh, definitely. It certainly taps into what psychology might call the unconscious or subliminal personality. There are deep psychological shifts happening.
Right.
But the mystical interpretation is that it's not just about uncovering, say, repressed desires or working through complexes, though that might be part of purgation. It's fundamentally about making a spark of true being, that divine element within conscious, bringing what's deepest and most real to the surface.
So the unconscious mind becomes something else.
The great mystics, yes. The subliminal mind, as Underhill calls it, isn't just a source of uncontrolled impulses. Through discipline, it becomes a highly disciplined and skilled instrument of knowledge, tuned to perceive reality differently.
And theologically, how does mysticism relate to doctrines like, say, the Trinity?
It suggests that such complex theological concepts often aren't just abstract philosophical propositions developed in isolation.
What are they then?
They can be seen as attempts by the church or by theologians to describe and make sense of collective firsthand experience, trying to articulate the different ways the divine, the unconditioned one, is experienced as transcendent Father, as indwelling Son or Spirit, for example. It's a dividing of the aspects under which it knows the Godhead to try and comprehend the incomprehensible.
So doctrine emerging from experience.
At least partly, yes.
Huh.
Even seemingly contradictory philosophical ideas used in theology, like divine immanence, God within everything, and emanation, everything flowing out from God.
Yeah, those can seem hard to reconcile.
Right. But mystics often see them not as mutually exclusive choices, but as complementary truths. Just symbols, methods, diagrams, as Underhill says, trying to point towards an utterly ineffable experience from different angles. That word again, ineffable, beyond words. If these experiences are truly so hard to describe, how do mystics even begin to communicate them? How do they share their insights?
That's a huge challenge for them. And the answer is they rely very heavily, almost exclusively sometimes, on symbolism.
Symbolism, okay.
Direct, literal description of deep spiritual experience is seen as basically impossible. So it's always symbolic, elusive, oblique, pointing, hinting, suggesting.
What makes this symbol effective then, in this context?
Underhill says a good symbol will use to the utmost the resources of beauty and of passion, will bring with it hints of mystery and wonder. It has to resonate emotionally and intuitively, not just intellectually.
Can you give some examples of mystical symbolism?
Sure. Think of the common Sufi symbol of the pilgrimage. The traveler isn't literally going somewhere on a map.
What is the traveler? The traveler is the perceptive sense within us, the soul, seeking knowledge of God. And the journey involves casting off unnecessary luggage, our ego, attachments, preconceptions, in order to become perfectly free.
That's a powerful image.
Or think of the incredibly rich, if often obscure, imagery of alchemy.
Alchemy, like turning lead into gold.
Well, yes, but on a symbolic level. The true alchemical quest wasn't just about literal metals, the search for the philosopher's stone.
What did that represent?
It represented the transformation of the imperfect human soul into deified man, perfected, illuminated humanity, sometimes called the red dragon or the living gold. It's all about inner transformation.
Fascinating. Any other kinds of symbols?
Even music itself is used as a profound symbol. Hugh of St. Victor, a medieval mystic, described three kinds of music: of the worlds, the harmony of the cosmos; of humanity, the harmony of body and soul; and of instruments.
And what do these reflect?
They all reflect the supernal fugue, the divine harmony of the universe. So these symbols, pilgrimage, alchemy, music, they aren't just illustrations. They are attempts to convey something truly beyond the grasp of ordinary language.
allowing the listener or the reader to grasp by resonance what can't be stated directly.
Exactly. To feel the truth, not just understand the words.
We've really journeyed through quite a landscape today, from the initial awakening of the self through that intense crucible of purification,
The dark night.
then into the brilliant light of illumination, and finally arriving at the ultimate union, the engagement of the unit of life. It's an extraordinary path.
It really is.
So different from the popular notions, and yeah, truly a deep dive into human potential.
And if we try to connect this back to the bigger picture, Underhill really underscores that the mystic way is nothing less than a complete and most difficult expression of life, which is as yet possible to man.
The most difficult expression of life possible.
That's how she frames its potential, yes. It's not about cultivating just a spiritual hobby or side interest. It's a journey of fundamentally remaking the whole person. Body, mind, spirit, everything integrated.
And the purpose of that remaking.
It is, she says, the art of establishing his conscious relation with the Absolute, and through that relationship, allowing individuals to incarnate the eternal in time.
Incarnate the eternal meaning.
To bring those qualities of the absolute love, wisdom, peace, creativity into the world through their own lives. To become an agent of the divine fecundity, a source of life and creativity.
So what does all this mean for you listening now? Perhaps, as our sources suggest, every person who awakens to consciousness of a reality which transcends the normal world of sense is put upon a road which follows at low levels the path which the mystic treads at high levels.
That's an intriguing thought. It implies maybe this isn't entirely separate from ordinary life.
Maybe not. It hints that the true mysteries of life accomplish themselves so softly that the unimaginative natural man is hardly startled by their daily and radiant revelation of infinite wisdom and love.
So the revelation might be happening all the time, but we don't notice.
Perhaps. Which raises, I think, a really important closing question for you to consider.
Huh.
What hard crust of surface consciousness, as Underhill calls it, might be concealing this potentially profound daily revelation from your own normal sight? What might need to soften or break for you to see differently?